I grew up as childhood friends with the male lead and the male supporting role, knowing that they would eventually fall in love with the female lead. I chose to smile and watch from the sidelines. Watch as they spent lavishly on the female lead in my family's entertainment venue. Watch as they paid sky-high prices in auctions for my ordinary jewelry just to please her. I thought I could always sit back, count my money, and enjoy the melodramatic entanglements they staged for her. But later, the way they looked at me changed. Chapter 1. The first time I met Maria was in a VIP private club. At that time, I was leaning idly against the wall, waiting for the elevator. The ambiguous commotion beside me made me somewhat irritated. Turning his head sideways, he saw a greasy, jewel-bedecked middle-aged man with a receding hairline wrapping his arm around a drunken young girl. This kind of thing wasn't rare in high society. If only the girl wasn't wearing a school uniform. I looked at her coolly. Her features were delicate, her eyes damp, and her face flushed unnaturally. She looked like a white camellia slowly blooming in the heart of winter. The man's thick, greasy hand was reaching under her uniform, but she seemed unaware, only mumbling, let go. I still need to work part-time to earn tuition. The man chuckled lewdly. Be good today. Follow me to meet the big boss. And if you behave, forget tuition, someone will even pluck the stars from the sky for you. I watched quietly for a moment. When the elevator doors slowly opened, I reached out to stop them. Hey, getting an underage girl drunk and drugging her is against the law. The man clearly hadn't expected anyone to interfere. I pulled lightly and took the girl into my arms. He froze for a second, then flew into a rage. Where did this damn brat come from? Daring to ruin my fun? Talk law with me? Even if I shit on the police chief's head, they wouldn't dare touch me. If you're smart, you'll get lost. If you ruin the boss's mood, I'll just send you up there too to make amends. He reached out to grab me. I sneered softly, exerted a little force, and with a crack snapped one of his wrist bones, holding the girl loosely in my arms. I smiled. And which almighty boss are you talking about? Name him. I'd like to see which so-called big shot I don't know. Perhaps my tone was too arrogant. His pain-contorted face went even paler. After all, anyone who could enter this club was either rich or powerful. But even among the wealthy and powerful, there were ranks. It all depended on how noble the golden spoon in your mouth was. Grinding his teeth, he asked, "Who the hell are you?" I tilted my chin slightly, perfectly mimicking the spoiled arrogance of a rich young heir, and spat out one name, coldly, Teresa Lynn. The moment the words fell, the swaggering pig turned into a trembling quail. His shoulders shook, and he bent down repeatedly. Miss Lynn. I offended you just now. Before he could finish, I interrupted him calmly. No need. For your hand injury, present your medical records to the Lynn family for reimbursement. His trembling grew worse. I wouldn't dare. Wouldn't dare. If you don't dare, then scram. Watching his almost panicked retreating figure, I curled my lips in mockery, lowering my gaze. I looked at the girl in my arms, just about to wake her. Hey, are you okay? Before I could finish, she furrowed her brows in discomfort. The next second, she threw up all over me. I drew in a deep breath, temples throbbing violently, grabbing her jaw roughly. I barely resisted the urge to strangle her. You trying to die? I had only acted the righteous hero because I was bored and overly soft-hearted. If I had known the price was my Balenciaga haute couture getting vomited on, I would have walked straight into the elevator without looking back. But the moment my fingertips brushed her, a mechanical voice rang in my mind. Dean, the female lead is now online. Chapter 2. Almost in an instant, my mind whirled with flashing fragments of memory. The girl before me, Maria, was the delicate white flower female lead of a melodramatic harem romance novel, as pure and fragile as glass. Surrounding her were the male lead and the male supporting role, the two men who had grown up with me as childhood friends. The male lead, Ethan Hahn, and the male supporting role, Charles Ning, and I just happened to be the vicious female antagonist in this story. Despising the female lead for so easily attracting everyone's attention, I opposed her at every turn. In the end, I met a miserable fate, despised by all, cast out of the Lin family with nothing but a ragged mat to my name, and finally, I spent the rest of my days in a mental asylum. Pure melodrama, pure dog-blood tragedy. As I was still in a daze, a familiar cool voice sounded behind me. Teresa. I turned my head to see Ethan walking toward me. You're here, why didn't you go upstairs? He was dressed in a tailored suit, exuding noble aloofness. His gaze brushed, intentionally or not, past the half-conscious Maria beside me. Just as I was about to speak, Maria suddenly threw herself at Ethan. She moved too quickly. Ethan could only extend his arm to encircle her waist. Perhaps the warmth and breadth of his chest gave the girl a sense of refuge. She struggled a few times, then closed her eyes and fainted in his arms. I was speechless, as expected of the male and female leads. Even their way of meeting was so melodramatic and spark-filled. Ethan still had some gentlemanly manners. He looked down at the Maria in his arms, then at the vomit soiling my clothes. After only a brief hesitation, he said gently, I'll have someone take you to clean up. No need. I rubbed my brow, annoyed. Just tell Charles I'm not coming tonight. You all have fun. Ethan said nothing, only nodded lightly, then added calmly, I won't go up either. I gave him a puzzled look. Ethan bent his long arms, lifting Maria completely into his embrace, and said with a straight face, I'll take her home. Chapter 3. As the Lin family's personally trained heir, I had always been good at adapting. That same night, I fully digested the fact that I was the vicious supporting character. Since going against Maria brought only a miserable end, I might as well keep my distance. Besides, the thought that I would seriously oppose a delicate white flower over two men was absurd, almost laughable. Indeed, as the heirs of the Han and Ning families, Ethan Han was brilliant yet cold and indifferent, like a lofty flower blooming on a distant peak. Charles Ning, however, was his opposite, arrogant, unruly, and known throughout the circle as a frivolous playboy. Even my mother occasionally whispered to me, asking, which one do you like? And I would usually just smile wordlessly. After all, heirs of powerful families were always raised under the law of wolves. The tides of fortune shifted constantly, with new elites emerging every year. Rather than saying Ethan, Charles, and I were three innocent childhood companions, it was more accurate to say we were three young wolves who had grown up together, close, but ready to devour each other if necessary to grow stronger. So most of the time, I simply smiled and watched their melodramatic entanglements with Maria. As long as it didn't interfere with me, I didn't mind treating it all as entertainment. Of course, I occasionally profited from it. For example, by bringing them to the Lin family casino and watching them throw away fortunes for Maria. The worse their expressions, the higher the stacks of chips, and the happier I laughed. Or, for instance, watching them spend exorbitant sums at auctions to buy my ordinary jewelry just to please her. And finally, when I went on stage as the organizer to present flowers, Charles's face was stormy, and he finally gritted his teeth and snapped, You've milked us again, you damn brat. Meanwhile, Ethan only smiled and shook his head, utterly helpless. With a sly grin, I winked at them, only to meet Maria's gaze. Her eyes were gentle, yet complicated. In them, I caught a glimpse of envy, unease, and another emotion I couldn't quite name. I paused for a moment, then gave her a token hug as I placed the bouquet in her arms. Congratulations. Chapter 4. I thought I would always be happy to sit back and watch them play out this love triangle, until my 18th birthday banquet. My grand coming-of-age ceremony was held in a luxury hotel owned by the Lin family. The Lins threw a grand feast, inviting nearly every notable figure in the city. In the vast, resplendent ballroom filled with flowers, gowns, and glittering lights, nobles and elites gathered. My father officially transferred several of the Lin Group's subsidiaries under my name, and I, wearing the elegant dress my mother had chosen, blew out the candles under everyone's gaze. I displayed the large donation check I had saved up over the years for charity. With tear-filled eyes, I gave a speech about my grand ideals as an adult. Since childhood, I had known that acting and etiquette were compulsory courses in my life. So even though I felt weary and uninterested at that moment, I still naturally wore a happy smile until the end of my coming-of-age ceremony. Yet, just as I held the microphone politely delivering my speech, a sharp scream suddenly split the air. It was followed by the dull sound of fists pounding into flesh. The crowd gasped, heads turning toward the commotion. My two dear childhood companions. Charles had Ethan pinned beneath him, veins bulging on his forehead as he punched his face again and again. Meanwhile, Maria cried as she desperately tugged at Charles's clothes. The crowd quickly rushed to pull them apart. And so, almost everyone present learned that the heirs of the Han and Ning families had gotten into a brawl over a Cinderella at my birthday banquet. An elder scolded loudly, "Such disgraceful behavior." But I merely watched quietly for a moment, then walked down from the stage under countless gazes. Ethan's head hung low, his expression unreadable. Charles glared at him, his face still filled with menace. Passing Maria, I gave her a faint glance. That one glance made her stumble back 2 steps in fright. I stopped in front of Charles, my lips curving in a gentle, harmless smile. "Charles, is this your birthday gift to me?" He looked at me as though waking from a dream, momentarily stunned. "Teresa." Before he could finish, I raised my hand and slapped him. A crisp smack rang out. The crowd collectively sucked in a sharp breath. Maria's face turned deathly pale in shock. Even Ethan couldn't help but look up at me, but I only retrieved my hand with indifference, casually wiping it with a handkerchief. "Charles, are you sober now?" After all, this was the Lin family's venue. Bodyguards had long since surrounded the scene, and no one dared move recklessly. Charles hadn't spoken yet, but Maria rushed forward, pushing me back, her face righteous as she questioned me. "You don't even know what happened. How can you just hit someone?" "Charles, he only fought because he was defending me. It was all my fault. If you must blame someone, blame me." I gave her a light glance and a shallow smile. "All right. Then please settle the bill later for the things they broke, along with that custom Balenciaga gown from last time." Maria's face turned several shades paler. She bit her lip, struggling. "I'll work hard to pay it back, Teresa. I know because of me these days, Charles and Ethan have been neglecting you. You 3 used to be so close, so it's only natural you'd feel resentment, no matter what. This all started because of me. I hope it won't ruin your friendship with them." I smiled serenely. "Miss Maria, I'm not talking about emotions. I'm talking about money. With your part-time jobs, how long do you think I'll have to wait until you repay it all?" Maria's tears fell instantly, as if on command. "Then what do you want?" The amusement in my eyes faded slightly, replaced by a cold voice. "I don't want anything. I'm just telling you, if you can't afford to play the game, don't meddle in it. Since you weren't the one who threw the punches, don't act fragile and try to shoulder the blame. Do you think a few tears absolve you of consequences? Or was this deliberate? Did you want them to fight? To embarrass me on purpose?" Maria shook her head with her eyes closed, looking anguished. "I'm sorry. I really didn't know they would do this." Someone in the crowd let out a cold laugh. My mother, elegant and commanding, walked gracefully to my side, looking down at Maria. Her presence alone was intimidating. "My daughter's birthday banquet, is it supposed to be your stage for relationship drama?" "Maria, is it? I don't recall your name being on the Lin family's guest list. I don't know who brought you in, but since you're here, I assumed you came to offer blessings. Yet now you dare stand here, crying and making trouble for my daughter. Someone, escort this impolite young lady out." I held back a laugh as I glanced at my mother. I wanted to say, "Mom, between the 2 of us, this really is the textbook vicious supporting role act." The standoff left the atmosphere tense, until finally our male lead stepped in to resolve it. Ethan pulled out a check and pressed it onto the table. "Auntie, I'm sorry for everything that happened today. All damages, I'll cover them." Then, without another word, he led the tearful Maria away. Charles's face darkened, and he tried to follow, but his aunt from the Ning family, after watching the whole drama, smacked him sharply on the head, dragging him over. She forced him to apologize to me. As for me, I looked around the banquet hall, now in shambles, then at Ethan and Maria's retreating figures, and in my eyes, a trace of disgust flickered. Chapter 5. After the chaos of my coming-of-age banquet. A long time passed before I saw those 3 again. Though it meant losing a great deal of entertainment, I was more than happy with the peace. After all, as we grew older, who knew what ridiculous stunts those 3 crazy fools would pull in the name of their laughable love? Better to stay far away. Besides, ever since taking over several Lin Group subsidiaries. My days were consumed by racing to earn academic credits, along with endless rounds of banquets and socializing that left me with gastritis and recurring fevers. Still, given the long-standing friendship between the Han, Ning, and Lin families, it was inevitable that we would cross paths again. But what I hadn't expected was that the first to seek me out would be Maria. That day, I squeezed out a little free time to meet her at a cafe. After more than half a year apart, Maria had transformed from a poor Cinderella into a polished socialite. Her flawless makeup and head-to-toe luxury goods all testified to how well she was being pampered. I gave her a light smile and greeted her casually. Maria seemed ready to exchange pleasantries, but I simply sipped my coffee and gestured for her to get to the point. She pulled out a thick stack of documents from her bag and slid them across the table to me. As I flipped through, my expression darkened with every page. Inside was a detailed account of how Maria's father had taken the fall for a high-ranking official in City A and ended up in prison. I snapped the file shut, tossing it onto the table with a cold laugh. What's this supposed to mean? Maria batted her lashes, smiling sweetly. Teresa, people who get angry too often will only grow ugly. I drew 2 steady breaths. Then, in the next second, dumped my entire cup of coffee over her face. You already know my temper isn't great, so how about saying something I can actually understand? Maria didn't even get angry. She slowly wiped the drops from her face, glancing vaguely out the window. Then she said softly, "The Lin family's influence in City A reaches everywhere. Pulling my father out of prison shouldn't be too hard, should it?" Oh, this I knew well. Having a family member in prison for taking the blame was practically a standard backstory for pitiful Cinderella heroines in romance novels. But Maria's attitude now was not that of someone begging for help. It was more like provocation, playful mockery, waiting for me to stumble into her trap. I smiled. "You want me to help you? Fine. From here, you'll kneel step by step all the way to Jincheng Tower 3 kilometers away. And the whole time, you'll shout that I'm your honored auntie. If you can do that, I might consider it. After all, if you're asking me for a favor, I need to see your sincerity." And as soon as the words left my mouth, I realized what Maria's so-called trap was. Because at that moment, a tall figure appeared at the cafe entrance. Ethan. His brows were shadowed with storm clouds, his face frighteningly cold. Seeing Maria's pitiful look, the first thing he did was take off his suit jacket and drape it over her shoulders. After soothing her briefly, he turned to me and said, "Teresa, don't go too far for what you just said. Apologize to Maria." I rolled my eyes and muttered, "Two idiots." Then I grabbed my bag and walked out of the cafe without looking back. But inside, a flicker of doubt stirred. Was Maria really the delicate white flower female lead of a sweet romance novel? Why did her actions feel so sloppy, so full of cracks? Had the bar for being a heroine really fallen this low? Yet before I could sort out my thoughts, I paid the price. A business partnership I had spent half a year personally securing through countless banquets collapsed. Just when the deal was about to be finalized, the other party claimed to have received an anonymous file. That file exposed the so-called fatal risks hidden in the product's development process, and accused us of plagiarizing foreign patented technology. Not only that, they had brought in a world-renowned investment consultancy to provide a detailed analysis of the project's prospects. The conclusion was clear, utterly pessimistic. I stared at the computer screen for a long time, unable to form an expression. I knew this was Ethan's warning, his punishment for my offense against Maria. This project, though under a Lin subsidiary, was actually independent of the Lin family. I had built it with a few senior students in biochemistry, working day and night on the R&D. The so-called high pollution mentioned in the report had only existed in the earliest prototype, and the partners guilty of stealing technology had long been expelled from the team. It would have been easy enough to explain, but I hadn't expected Ethan to go this far, to drag in even Mars Capital's top investment consultants, just to ruin me, killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. I drew in a long breath, forcing down the violent impulse to smash the computer to pieces. And suddenly, I realized, perhaps it wasn't without reason that I had ended up as the vicious supporting character. I had always known I wasn't a good person. At the very least, I possessed a vengeful heart that never forgave a slight. "Ethan, if you've chosen to play against me, then I'll make sure I play you to death." Chapter 6. Opening the already chaotic group chat. The screen was flooded with anxious messages about the broken capital chain and product manufacturing. I sighed and typed a line of comfort. Senior brothers and sisters, don't worry, I'll ask my parents for help. Just those words fell like a stabilizing anchor. The group fell silent for a moment, then erupted into cheers of relief. I stared at the screen, feeling restless. The one who had once sworn passionately to create something entirely her own was me. And now, the one forced to rely on the Lin family and beg her parents for help was also me. To say I wasn't disappointed would be a lie. I idly scrolled through the backlog of unread messages, replying here and there, until, in a chat group full of spoiled heirs joking around, I saw a conversation. Sigh. We're all the same age. Yet Ethan built his own company from scratch and it's about to go public, while I'm still in Australia digging bird nests on a ranch. No kidding, Ethan has always been the so-called perfect child in parents' eyes. How could we possibly compare? One phrase caught me immediately. Ethan Hahn's KB Tech was about to go public. Almost instinctively, I recalled the flashes of the original timeline that had once forced themselves into my mind. The Hahn family had once faced a near collapse. Key staff abandoned ship, and one scandal after another broke out: tax evasion, falsified quotas, stock manipulation, rigged bids. To save the Hahn family, Ethan had been forced into a business marriage with me, leveraging the Lin family's vast cash flow to stabilize their crisis. That marriage was the direct cause of the first fracture between the male and female leads, and it was also a key step toward my own tragic ending. And now, Ethan was choosing to go public at such a critical juncture. How could I not think of the reason? The Hahn family was out of money. They needed the massive financing from KB Tech's IPO to save the Hahn conglomerate. I sat in silence for a moment, then dialed my father. Dad, I want to play a game. When the call ended, I locked my screen and let out a cold laugh. Since I am already the vicious supporting character, then I might as well be vicious to the very end. Marriage alliance or IPO, whichever path Ethan chooses, I will make sure it is cut off. Chapter 7. In the heart of City A, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, stood a minimalist luxury apartment. Back when Charles had purchased it, he gave both me and Ethan a set of keys. Opening the door, a heavy stench of smoke and alcohol rushed out. The room was dark, the lights off, but the city neon streaming through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows was enough to reveal a half-dead figure slumped on the couch. I flicked on the light with a sharp click. Charles jolted upright in shock. Fuck. His eyes widened at me, his whole appearance a wreck. Clearly, realizing he was the complete loser in that tangled love triangle had struck him hard. Running a hand through his messy, bird's nest hair, Charles covered his eyes and asked hoarsely, "You here to laugh at me too?" I kicked aside a beer bottle blocking my way and sneered lightly. Heard Ethan gave you a pretty rough beating. That's how it goes in a cutthroat rivalry arena. Damn it, don't bring that up. I sat down on the sofa, lacing my fingers beneath my chin, speaking as though in negotiation. Charles, let's get married. The reason I chose Charles was simple. Ning Corporation's LH Capital was the largest investment firm in City A. To date, it had helped clients raise over $10 billion. And the current chairman of LH, known as the most formidable IPO broker in the circle, was none other than Charles's brother, Paul, a man obsessed with protecting his younger brother. Although Charles himself was just a frivolous playboy, a spoiled heir who only knew how to party, there was no denying he was the most pampered and fortunate among the city's elite brats. As Charles stared at me like he'd just seen a ghost, I leaned closer, smiling faintly. I'm serious. In the end, we're all bound for arranged marriages anyway. We grew up together. We know each other inside and out. Aren't we the best possible choice? I then pulled a contract from my bag, already prepared, and laid it on the coffee table. I'm not yet of legal marriage age, so we'll call it an engagement first. For a year, as long as you don't cause scandals that drag both our families into disgrace. I won't interfere in your affairs, and I expect the same from you. Watching Ethan and Maria play out their little romance every day, doesn't it make you sick? I hear Ethan's little tech startup is about to go public. Don't you want to mess with him a bit? Charles, sooner or later, we're all going to sit at the table of capital. Better to join the game now. Charles stared at me for a long while before blurting out, almost nonsensically, Teresa, don't tell me you actually like me? arms crossed. I simply gazed at him in silence, offering no answer. Whatever Charles chose to believe didn't matter, so long as he nodded and agreed. It wouldn't be a bad outcome for me. The silence stretched, heavy and strange, between us. At last, Charles tapped a cigarette from its pack, placing it between his lips as he squinted at me. I stepped forward, leaning down to light it for him, looking him straight in the eyes. I curved my lips into a smile. Think it over carefully. I'll be waiting for your reply. Chapter 8. After the news of my engagement to Charles was announced, people in the circle jokingly called us the Heartbreak Alliance. I frowned slightly, puzzled. What heartbreak of mine? Teresa, you forgot? When you were little, you really liked Ethan. The moment you learned to write, you rushed to pen him love letters, although I had no memory of it. That didn't stop me from sneering coldly. Something from 800 years ago, and you still want to bring it up? The Joker paled at my words and quickly apologized. On the day of the engagement banquet, Ethan and Maria arrived as expected. Maria's brows carried a trace of worry as she said gently to Charles, "Charles, although I turned you down, I still hope you'll find true happiness someday. Not just marry someone you don't love out of spite for me." Charles, already annoyed at the sight of her, was utterly enraged by this. So, under everyone's watchful gaze, the most unruly young master of the circle wore a stormy expression, pointed at Maria, and snapped, "Shut the fuck up. Who the hell do you think you are? Who I marry is none of your damn business." The gossip onlookers were thrilled, their every cell for drama buzzing alive. Eyes sweeping the room to find Ethan, hoping for the war to escalate. Unfortunately for them, disappointment awaited, because at that moment, Ethan had cornered me on the second-floor terrace. His expression was complicated, but his voice remained calm. "Why the sudden engagement? From what I remember, you never liked Charles." Leaning against the crimson railing, I arched a brow with a smile. "I don't like him. Does that mean I like you?" Ethan's face remained impassive, his tone solemn, almost brotherly. "Teresa, I've always seen you as a sister. Marriage is no small matter. If this is truly your choice, I won't object. I wish you both happiness." I laughed, as though I'd just heard the funniest joke, and retorted, "What kind of brother ruins his own sister's painstaking work over half a year for the sake of some woman? Mars Capital handles deals worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions, yet you use them against my tiny little side project that isn't even fit for the spotlight." "Ethan, we've known each other for over a decade. We grew up together as childhood friends. Are you really so afraid I might rise from the ashes stronger than before?" Ethan frowned, hesitating as he said, "That time, you really did go too far. Maria is just a defenseless girl. You didn't need to make things so hard for her." Before he could finish, I slapped him. Ethan's head turned aside, eyes downcast, his face still expressionless. I blew lightly across my fingertips, then nodded sincerely. "I won't make things hard for her, because the one I intend to make things hard for is you. This slap settles all our past grudges. I heard your company's going public. To celebrate our so-called reconciliation, Charles and I have decided to send you a big gift." Ethan looked slightly surprised, but said nothing more and turned to leave. Watching his retreating back, I curled my lips in mocking amusement. Settled? Wishful thinking. Chapter 9. 3 months later, the financing negotiation meeting for KB Tech's IPO was held right on schedule at the Lin Corporation Tower. Naturally, the firm handling KB's IPO was Ning Family's LH Capital, as I had expected. During the earlier bidding round, whether in capital management or risk control, LH Capital led all other investment banks by an absolute margin. After the bidding came the contracts, then the fees, and finally, the financing negotiations. All along, Ethan had concealed the internal problems of the parent company with flawless precision. But when it came time to ask investors for money, it was inevitable that cracks would show. At the meeting, KB Tech announced there would be no Series A, B, or C rounds. Ethan wanted all the money in a single round. At those words, I exchanged a glance with Paul. Financing takes time. Clearly, the Han family couldn't afford to wait. Charles, seated nearby, showed little reaction. To him, It was all the same whether the money was handed over sooner or later. The earlier it ended, the sooner he could watch Ethan's inevitable frustration. Time is money. As the lead investor, I acted generous, directly offering to invest $5 billion in exchange for 30% of KB's shares. In today's saturated tech market, a 3-year-old company like KB wasn't worth anywhere near $5 billion. So in Ethan's eyes, my solar fund was practically doing charity for him. The solar fund had been founded by me, with Charles as its legal face, backed by both the Lin and Ning families. Its financial strength was immense. To outsiders, this was nothing more than a pair of privileged heirs lending a hand to their childhood friend, offering a glorious start. With the solar fund shouldering the bulk of the investment, the atmosphere in the hall gradually lightened. But just as Ethan's expression began to ease, I spoke up at the right moment. President Han, Solar is willing to invest this money because we believe in KB's potential. But for risk management, we require you to pledge an additional 10% of shares as a bet-on agreement. In finance, such agreements meant that if KB failed to go public or didn't meet its performance targets, 10% of its shares would be forfeited to Solar. At that point, Solar Fund would hold over 38% of shares, more than Han Corporation itself, and transform into KB's largest shareholder. This was as good as openly telling Ethan, my money doesn't come without strings attached. But with Han Corp on the brink of collapse, desperate for funds, would he dare take the risk? Ethan's face clearly darkened. He hesitated briefly, then clenched his teeth and said, of course, it's only fair to protect investors' interests. I'm confident KB won't let you down. And thus, the negotiation ended smoothly. After the investment agreement was signed, the three of us, Charles, Ethan, and I, sat down for a rare meal together. This time, thank you. With the capital chain problem temporarily resolved, Ethan visibly relaxed. Charles and I exchanged a look, both smiling faintly, and raised our glasses together. What's there to thank? You're making it sound too formal. Charles's smile carried a trace of something unreadable. After all, we've been good friends since childhood. The atmosphere at the table was warm, almost harmonious, until a delicate voice rang out. Ethan, how could you eat with them without inviting me? Maria had arrived. Chapter 10. Charles had always worn his emotions plainly on his face, and now he slammed down his knife and fork, his expression black as thunder. Didn't I say I never wanted to see this woman again? I sipped my champagne lightly, not even lifting my eyes. Ethan frowned, trying to pull Maria aside to talk, but Maria shook off his hand, and tears immediately spilled down her cheeks. I know you all hate me, but I really feel awful. We weren't like this before, Charles. Let this glass of wine be my apology to you. Even if we can't be lovers, we can still be friends, right? The words hit Charles's sore spot. Enraged, he shot up from his seat. You dare bring that up? The biggest regret of my life was liking a woman like you. Friends? What friends? If Teresa hadn't saved you back then, do you really think clinging to me was that easy? Maria froze on the spot, while Ethan rubbed his temples in weary frustration. Charles grabbed my hand in one swift motion. Let's go. Forget the meal. This is nothing but bad luck. Fuck. As we passed Maria, I gave her a smiling glance. A little farther away, faintly behind us, I could still hear Maria's aggrieved sobs, and Ethan's low, restrained yet impatient voice. He said, Maria, enough. I curled my lips into a smile. Enough? Hardly. This was nowhere near enough. Chapter 11. KB Tech was just one step away from securing its investment. And right then, a bombshell dropped, a report from a renowned foreign investment bank investigating the Han Corporation's internal affairs sent shockwaves through City A's financial circle. The publisher was bold, refusing anonymity. The title line displayed in stark clarity, LH Capital. The report ruthlessly laid out the facts: declining revenue, internal corruption, power struggles, shrinking cash flow, repeated failed investments. Many investors who had hoped to hitch a ride on KB's IPO immediately recoiled. And the sources of this internal information? None other than several core executives of Han Corporation itself. Almost simultaneously, the Solar Fund's due diligence team uncovered that KB had secretly funneled money to Han Corporation multiple times, on grounds of harming investor interests. Solar declared its intent to drag KB Tech's founder into court. The storm dragged on for some time. At the Lin estate, the elders of the three families were already in a furious uproar. You turning on us now? It's outright fraud. Madame Ning, usually the warmest and kindest among the elders, was livid, throwing her Hermes crocodile skin bag at Charles's face. To think your father and I believed you'd finally grown up enough to shoulder responsibility for the family, and yet you, this unfilial son, dare to collude with your brother and Teresa in dirty tricks? What kind of deep grudge does the Lin family bear you? For that wretched woman. You'd actually... Charles's face was grim as stone. He glanced at me wordlessly. I returned him a cheerful smile and a playful wink. Charles's expression darkened even further. Han father and Han mother were already overwhelmed. Far too drained to kick up a scene. Now they merely begged for terms that might persuade Solar Fund to withdraw its lawsuit. Everyone knew one thing clearly: Ethan could not go to court. Thus far, only bad debts had been revealed publicly. But if the case were tried in court, the scandals truly unfit for daylight would be dragged out, scandals that could send the Han family plunging from the pinnacle of power into the abyss overnight. In the end, the Han patriarch, 97 years old, with 5 critical illness notices already behind him, dragged his frail body forward. Nearly collapsing, he clutched my parents' hands, weeping as he recalled the long friendship among the three families. Only then did my usually silent father give me a look. It meant, that's enough. End it here. I nodded, cleared my throat softly, and drew everyone's attention. My condition is simple. Lin Corporation will acquire 51% of Han Corporation's parent company. The moment the words left my lips, every face changed, except my parents' and Charles's. For a long while, silence hung heavy. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice hoarse. From the very beginning, you were aiming for Han Corporation. Everyone understood then. So what if KB Tech was Ethan's years of hard work? I had never cared for it. That $5 billion wasn't to buy KB Tech. It was to buy the entire Han Corporation. For decades, the Han family had been entrenched at the very pinnacle of City A's elite. Its scale and business model were already highly mature. An apple may rot from within, maggots squirming inside, but what if the apple were made of gold? Simply cut out the rotten parts, and the rest remained treasure. The Lin family had both the capital and the strength to take over. From top to bottom, it was pure profit. And as for the Ning family, riding along on this golden opportunity would be nothing short of fortune falling from the sky. So the once furious Madame Ning fell instantly silent. That was always how it worked in the arena of power, before money and influence. Sentiment ranked last. After a long tug of war, Ethan, the golden child who had become CEO of Han Corporation at 18, finally lowered his head. Softly, he said, "Fine." When he raised his eyes back to me, they had changed, complicated beyond words: defeat, reluctant admiration, and an awe he had never shown me before, as if he had never truly known me at all. Of course, this was hardly the first time I'd seen such a gaze. From the moment I'd begun laying the trap of this IPO, I had already seen that look on Charles's face. Again and again. Chapter 12. These days, I had been busy with the acquisition of Han Corporation. Finally, when things reached a temporary pause, I had just stepped out of the Lin Tower when Maria suddenly rushed at me. "Teresa, why are you doing this? Why do you have to hurt Ethan? If you hate me for taking Ethan, then come at me directly. I have nothing. I'm not afraid of you at all." Charles reacted quickly, stepping in front of me and ordering the bodyguards to drag the madwoman away. I looked into the muddled depths of Maria's eyes and curved my lips in a smile. "As you yourself said, the Lin family has connections everywhere in City A. If I really wanted to deal with you, do you think you'd still be standing here intact, speaking to me with all your limbs attached?" Maria tried to struggle closer again, but luckily, Ethan arrived just in time. He looked weary, the dark circles under his eyes standing out starkly against his refined features. Silently, firmly, he pulled Maria back, his words brief and decisive. "Enough, Maria, we're done." In this circle, it was an unspoken rule to give a parting gift when breaking up. Over the years, Charles's various girlfriends had already walked away with more than a dozen Maybachs. So Ethan also left Maria some money, but according to her, she donated all of it to charity, keeping not a single cent. I usually only listen to such gossip with half an ear, never bothering to verify. But later, I learned Maria had used that money against me. At a business banquet, halfway through a glass of wine, I suddenly felt my limbs weaken. The reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows showed my own pale face, flushed, brow furrowed, breathing heavy, eyes dark with a rising haze of desire. In an instant, I realized what had happened. There had been something in that wine, and in all of City A, there was only one person bold enough to target me so openly. I bit down hard, pulling out my phone to send Charles my location with a single message. "You have 3 minutes. Get here now. I've been drugged." Then I gave the bodyguards a cold order. "Grab Maria. Do it cleanly. Don't arouse suspicion. Wait for my return." As I left hurriedly, I could sense several lecherous gazes trailing after me. But I had no choice. My body was already slipping beyond my control. The path back to the hotel required crossing a long corridor. It felt as though it had been deliberately designed, dim, nearly pitch black, and I could hear the footsteps behind me drawing closer and closer. Just as those greasy, filthy hands were about to touch me, a violent punch cut through the air. Charles's handsome face twisted with a trace of madness. His eyes were red, and he fought like a man possessed, each blow landing on their bodies with lethal force. Leaning weakly against the wall, I slowly crouched down, gasping raggedly, "Don't kill them. Make them talk. I want to know who their backer is." Charles didn't reply. After beating them half unconscious, he dragged them into a pantry. Then he turned back to me, visibly unsettled. "I'll help you relieve it first. You'll suffer if this keeps up." Sweat had already broken out across my brow. My eyes stayed shut, my body trembling with pain. When I felt his lips about to press down, instinct jolted me awake. I shoved him hard and slapped him across the face. Charles ground his teeth. "Teresa, I haven't even married you yet and you're already hitting me? Once, twice. Is this your new addiction to domestic violence?" I stared at him coldly. God knows how many women that mouth had kissed. Of course I found it filthy, but I couldn't let that show now. Softening my gaze just slightly, I raised a hand and pressed down firmly on his hair. Then, lowering my lashes, I touched 2 fingers lightly to his lips. My voice was soft. "Just with this, is that acceptable?" Charles looked at me as if gravely insulted, eyes flashing with shock. But in the end, he said nothing. He knelt, lowering his head against my abdomen. As his actions slowly eased my torment, my eyes only grew colder. I had been raised in luxury since birth. No one had ever laid a finger on me. Yet the pain I had just endured had left me wishing for death. I had never hated so much. Then, by chance, I noticed a figure standing at the far end of the corridor. I narrowed my eyes, trying to see clearly, and realized it was Ethan. At an event of this caliber, it was natural he'd been invited. And earlier, when I left, I thought I had accidentally met his gaze. Had he followed me here? Ethan stood there openly, neither near nor far, watching me and Charles. A small flame sparked at his fingertips as his throat bobbed once. His gaze was deep, dark, unreadable, and I only tilted my lips into a mocking smile. Chapter 13. After it was over, Charles pried the name I had already expected from those men's mouths. It was Maria. At the same time, I received a message from the bodyguards. "Miss, we've done exactly as you instructed." My face showed no expression as I replied lightly, "Got it." Charles's ears had already flushed red. He gripped my wrist, eyes a little uneasy, but his voice was firm. "I'll take care of her for you." I gave him a single glance. "No need. It's not your concern." And just like that, I walked away, leaving Charles behind, punching the wall in frustration, while Ethan, no one knew when, had already left. Late at night, in a Lynn family villa on the outskirts, I stared at Maria, her hands and feet bound behind her, unconscious and sprawled on the ground. Coldly, I ordered, "Wake her up." Moments later, a basin of ice water splashed down. Maria jolted awake, eyes wide with fear. Looking down on her from above, I pressed the tip of my heel onto her throat, adding slight pressure. "I knew you were stupid, but I didn't think you could be this stupid. That money Ethan gave you, you could have bribed prison guards to make life easier for your father. You could have bought yourself an apartment, or even gone abroad to study. In short, you could have made yourself halfway presentable as a human being. But you used it on me. Maria looked up at me, her eyes no longer gentle but twisted into a near-mad smile. It doesn't matter. I was going to be erased anyway. If it weren't for you, Ethan's favorability score would have reached 100 long ago. You ruined everything for me, so if I'm going to die, I'm dragging you down with me. But just killing you would be too easy. A high and mighty princess like you should taste what it feels like to be humiliated. Ah. Before she finished, I kicked her hard, then smiled at her sweetly. Unfortunately, you're going to be disappointed. What did you just mean? Erased? Favorability score? Maria laughed until tears spilled from her eyes. Still pretending, you bitch. I've spent all this time trying to conquer Ethan. So many times I was on the verge of completing my mission. But then you showed up, and the score would plummet again. I thought I was doing something wrong. But then I found those old love letters you gave him, hidden in his house, all these years. And he actually kept them. Disgusting. Yeah, it was disgusting. I thought to myself silently. Maria went on. You're hellbent on destroying Ethan. Just because you resented me for taking him, you wanted both of us to suffer, didn't you? Well, you've gotten your wish. I'm about to die, but the original owner of this body will die too. Ha ha ha. Teresa, it was you who killed the real Maria, the truly gentle, strong, beautiful heroine. She didn't have to die, but because of you, she will. I smiled too. Slowly, I crouched down beside her ear, and softly, seriously, tenderly, I whispered, word by word, do you think I'd care? After all, I'm the vicious supporting character. Chapter 14. After that day, I never saw Maria again, but the doubts circling in my mind never quite went away. What was the real truth? It was all so strange, so bizarre, that my limited understanding couldn't make sense of the things Maria had said. But confusion aside, life still went on. One step after another. I had thought that after everything, the bonds between the Lin, Han, and Ning families would collapse completely. But in truth, I had underestimated them. The Han family's magnanimity far exceeded my expectations. Han Corporation had first risen in London, and Father Han had since resided in Europe, focusing on their overseas empire. Meanwhile, my mother still linked arms with the other two madams, shopping and playing mahjong as though nothing had changed. In short, family alliances and business rivalries often ran deeper than I had imagined, as expected of someone blessed with a male lead halo. Ethan, after Han Corporation's ownership changed hands, resigned as CEO. Soon after, just like when he founded KB Tech, he registered a new company and devoted himself entirely to it. In a few years, he would probably become a formidable opponent, so I thought silently. Up to this point, whether in studies or in business, everything had been under my control, smooth and without waves, except for one thing. I ended my 3-year engagement with Charles early. The reason was simple. The original purpose of marrying into the Ning family had been to secure capital monopoly, expand territory, and swallow Han Corporation. But now, with the Lin family's current strength, such things were no longer necessary. Yet matters didn't go as smoothly as I expected. Reportedly, when Charles learned I intended to break off the engagement, he smashed the Ning patriarch's beloved jade Buddha in a fit of rage. Then he wept, rioted, starved himself, and threw tantrums, plunging the Ning household into chaos. In short, his words were simple. I won't break it. I'd rather die than break it. Damn it, Teresa. After all the terrible things you've done, now you think you can just kick me aside? I answered coldly. If you refuse, then I will never see you again for the rest of my life. And you know me, I always mean what I say. The farce dragged on for 2 months, until Charles cried like a fool. Fine, I'll let it go, but then I'll chase you instead. How about that? Beside him, Ethan patted his shoulder comfortingly. Brother, men aren't supposed to cry so easily. But if you're going to pursue her, you'll have to get in line. I rolled my eyes and left with my bag. Some time later, the voice that had once echoed in my mind came to me again. Thank you for expelling the foreign conqueror that invaded through the rift in space-time, and for preserving the order of this world. I was silent for a few seconds before saying, "Speak in words I can actually understand." Then, I finally learned the truth of this world. At first, it really had been a male rivalry battlefield romance, and I really had been the vicious supporting character, secretly in love with the male lead. Scheming and cruel, destined for a tragic end. If nothing had gone wrong, the original story would have played out to its conclusion. But at some point, a bug occurred in the Bureau of Time-Space Management. A rift tore open in this world, invaded by an external system, and the Maria I had seen was in fact a conqueror sent by the so-called conquest system. She had seized the original heroine's body, taken her place as Maria, and attempted to conquer the male lead, raising his favorability score until her mission was complete. In response, Heaven's will, desperate to repair the balance, had to improvise countermeasures. So, at the same time, my mother had a dream. In that dream, she foresaw my entire life as the vicious supporting character, bitter, jealous, scheming to steal back the male lead's heart, only to meet a miserable fate. When she woke, drenched in sweat, alarm bells rang in her soul. At the time, I was only 7 years old, spending my days chasing after Ethan, the boy next door, dreaming that one day I'd marry him, just learning to write. I penned him love letters, just learning to draw. I sketched him hearts. But after that dream, my mother changed. She taught me independence. She taught me self-respect. She told me I was still a princess. But Teresa, not all princesses are made of sugar, spice, and everything nice. Some princesses are born for adventure, for ideals, for wisdom, and for fearlessness. And little by little, I don't even know when, my gaze stopped following Ethan. By the time I came back to myself, that voice had faded. That night, I pushed open the study door. My mother was there, holding a book, her eyes gentle as they lifted to me. I leaned into her arms and told her everything I knew, seeking to confirm whether that dream had truly been real. But she only smiled softly, brushing back the strands of hair by my ear, as though touching her most precious treasure. She said, "You were never anyone's vicious supporting character. You will always be our true heroine." Chapter 15. A year later, I was invited to attend a forum. Unlike the glamorous banquets I had often attended, this was not the playground of spoiled young heirs and internet celebrities, but a financial forum truly backed by the state. Here, there was none of the decadent indulgence of luxury and vice, but there was real power and real wealth. Perhaps that elderly man in an old American-style loose suit brushing past me had once been a provincial governor or political commissioner. Among the invitees were also Ethan, Charles, and a few of our peers from a city's elite circle. We were chatting idly when suddenly, I felt someone carefully pat my shoulder. Turning my head, I saw a familiar face. Ethan and Charles both furrowed their brows instantly, stepping instinctively in front of me. But the young woman before me seemed unaware of the strangeness in others' gazes. She stood poised and polite, neither humble nor arrogant, her eyes gentle yet resilient. When she smiled, it was like a white camellia slowly blooming in winter. "President Lin." "Hello, I'm Maria. Here is my resume." I took the file from her hands and flipped through it casually. Maria, a finance undergraduate at a top 2 university, currently seeking angel investors for an innovative project aimed at supporting impoverished mountain regions. I read the project proposal carefully. It was still in its seed stage, in short. It had nothing concrete yet, and the risks were enormous. But there was something notable. The project was aligned with the National Poverty Alleviation Plan. Its potential was considerable. I returned the file and smiled. "Maria, is it? A very capable talent. This project does have potential. But the risks are obvious as well, so I'll need some time to consider." Maria's eyes lit up, and she nodded repeatedly. "Thank you, President Lin, for taking the time to read it. Here's my contact information." From start to finish, Maria never once looked at Ethan or Charles. After she left, Charles frowned in puzzlement. What the hell? Did she lose her memory? Doesn't she recognize us anymore? I didn't answer him. Instead, I recalled a conversation from long ago. I had asked that voice, "Is the real Maria still alive?" It had slowly answered, Perhaps one day, you'll have the chance to meet again." I gazed at Maria's retreating back, gentle, kind, steadily growing. I thought she was probably the kind of person who, even after missing a sky full of stars, could still wait calmly for the sunrise. It seemed our heroine, freed from the pull of the original plot, was shining brilliantly in her own world. 3 days later, I dialed the number Maria had given me. "Hello?" I smiled. "Is this Maria?" "This is Teresa. Before we get into business, I'd like to extend an olive branch. There's a vacancy for an intern in the risk control department of Sun Fund. Would you like to give it a try?" Her answer was exactly as I expected. A brief silence, then a tremor of surprise, and finally, earnest gratitude. Real, polite, and dignified. "Good. Now we can talk in detail about your project." After that, I lounged lazily on the sofa by the floor-to-ceiling window, speaking with Maria for an hour and a half. As evening fell, a new star began to rise in the sky. Story 2. Not long after his first love went abroad, Alex confessed to me. My friends teased. "After all this time, the most suitable person has always been by your side." He said nothing. I cautiously stayed by his side, thinking that sincerity would be reciprocated, until he missed my birthday party to pick up his first love from the airport. A friend asked him, "If you chose Lisa, why can't you let go of Zoe?" He replied, "A is always A, but B can be anyone." I finally understood that it was time for me to leave. Chapter 01. After being together for 3 years, Alex finally made our relationship public on his social media. For my 22nd birthday, he invited all his friends, saying he was going to throw me a grand party. I was touched, thinking that my sincerity had finally been rewarded, but I didn't expect him to suddenly be absent that day. At 7 in the evening, everyone had already arrived at the villa, yet Alex was still nowhere to be seen. A group of people surrounded me, asking with some impatience, "Lisa, where's Alex?" I clutched my phone tightly, stammering. He had an urgent matter and couldn't make it. In fact, I hadn't been able to reach him for the past hour. But Alex has already arranged everything. Just enjoy the food and have fun. Though I knew that very few of them were sincerely there to celebrate my birthday, I still tried my best to maintain my composure, smiling and greeting everyone present. Suddenly, someone in the crowd scoffed, acting like the hostess. Then someone else laughed loudly. I was wondering what was so important for Alex. Turns out he went to the airport to pick up Zoe. Upon hearing that, I froze for a moment, and the wine glass in my hand slipped and shattered on the floor. The woman who spoke was Oriana, a friend of Zoe's. As soon as she spoke, she drew everyone's attention. She waved her phone proudly. "Zoe just messaged me. She's back in the country for a vacation." I squatted down to clean up the shattered pieces of glass, accidentally cutting my finger. Oriana walked over, swaying her hips, and looked down at me condescendingly. "Oh, the main character's back. Some people must be frantic." Well, it's no wonder. Everyone knows how passionately Alex pursued Zoe back in high school. I hung my head without saying anything. I knew all too well how much Alex used to love Zoe. After all, I had been silently watching him from behind since I was 12. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Oriana lost interest and said, "This meal doesn't suit my taste, so I'll be leaving." After speaking, she headed straight for the door. As if she suddenly remembered something, Oriana paused and turned back, smiling. "Oh, I almost forgot to tell everyone, tomorrow, Alex is throwing a welcome back party for Zoe. The location is Rose Manor." She deliberately raised her voice, emphasizing the last 2 words. That was the estate Alex personally designed when he was 18, built exclusively for Zoe, filled with her favorite red roses. But shortly after the college entrance exams, Zoe went abroad. The manor was locked up by Alex, and no one was allowed to set foot there. The villa we're in now was something Alex rented temporarily to celebrate my birthday. It's May, and the roses on the garden wall are in full bloom. Oriana plucked one, tossed it to the ground, and stomped it into the dirt with her high heel. She then said, with a pointed look, "Climbing roses are weak and reliant, growing by entwining others. Naturally no match for the proudly standing rose." A round of laughter echoed around me. I followed her to the door, still keeping a smile on my face. I'm sorry for not hosting well today. Have a safe journey, sister. Oriana curled her lip in dissatisfaction. Low class can never be presentable. After witnessing the scene, everyone else soon left as well. Chapter 02. I watched the crowd disperse, and all the strength drained from my body, almost causing me to collapse on the floor. A pair of hands caught me just in time. The man frowned slightly, his face showing concern. I turned and saw Sam, forcing a smile. You haven't left yet? He scratched his head, his gaze flickering. I got a call earlier. Alex said he had something urgent and asked me to help host everyone for you. But somehow, everyone left in an instant. We've known each other for over 10 years, and he's not good at lying. I could see right through him. I gave a bitter smile. You don't need to hide it from me. I know he went to see Zoe. Sam's face showed embarrassment, and he awkwardly explained, Alex isn't someone without boundaries. He must have a reason. Don't overthink it. He then tried to comfort me. You two grew up together. Those years of companionship can't be compared to just anyone. My heart felt sour. Among Alex's friends, Sam was probably the only one who believed that. After all, Alex and I were people from different worlds. When I was 10, my father left my mother and me, taking another woman with him. My mother left me at the orphanage entrance and left by herself. Because of my introverted personality and timidity, I was always bullied by the other children. Alex's family was passionate about charity work. One day, Alex's parents brought him to the orphanage for charity, and all the children flocked to get gifts. I was sitting alone in the corner, crying, because someone had cut my hair. The director said I was antisocial and had trouble making friends. Alex came over, stuffed a handful of candies into my palm, and smiled. Here's some candy for you. Please don't cry, okay? Since then, Alex often came to find me, sometimes bringing his best friend Sam along. Our relationship grew closer and closer. Later, Alex's family decided to sponsor me, and they took me into their home. From the age of 12 to 17, I was always by Alex's side. Some people at school mocked me, calling me his personal maid. Alex kicked over their desk without hesitation, his face cold as he warned, Lisa is my sister. Stop talking nonsense, or I'll beat you every time I see you. I was very happy that he defended me, but deep down, I also felt a hint of sadness. In the second year of high school, Zoe transferred to our school. She was a beautiful girl, like a princess from a fairy tale. The boys pursued her fiercely, but Alex remained unmoved. Sam teased him, saying he was too picky. He raised his eyebrows and said lightly, with Lisa around, how could I be interested in other girls? Even though I knew it was a joke, I could clearly hear my heart skip a beat. On the first evening of the new semester in our second year, he came to the classroom to find me, sitting beside me with a mysterious look in his eyes. I have something important to tell you. His serious gaze made me nervous, and I asked, what is it? He leaned close and whispered in my ear, I'm going to pursue Zoe. I turned my head to look at him in disbelief. His eyes were filled with light, so bright, but they couldn't reflect my figure. He excitedly told me about his accidental encounter with her during the winter vacation and how he gradually fell for her. I sat there motionless, my eyes glued to the English vocabulary book on the desk. I was terrified that if I spoke another word to him, the sadness I felt would burst out uncontrollably. Finally, he asked me, Lisa, you're in the same class as Zoe. You'll help me, right? I heard myself respond with a very soft mem. He glanced at his beloved, who was surrounded by admirers, and walked away contentedly. That entire evening, I didn't turn a single new page in my vocabulary book. Abandon, the first word on the first line of the first page. I repeated it countless times. It turned out that my love for him had already grown uncontrollably like weeds. Chapter 03. I hid my feelings well, dutifully passing on his love letters, delivering gifts, and conveying messages. Alex's dream was to become an architectural designer, and his first project was the manor he designed for Zoe. She liked red roses, and he personally planted an entire garden of them for her. In June, when the roses were in full bloom, He confessed his feelings to his princess with all his sincerity, only to be rejected. Zoe said her heart already belonged to someone else, and she would soon be going abroad to join him. That night, Alex sat in the rose garden drinking all night, drunk to the point of losing consciousness. I took care of him the whole night and saw him cry for the first time. He really did seem deeply in love with that girl. How similar we were, both loving someone we could never have. Later, we got into the same university, and he never mentioned Zoe again. On Valentine's Day, he suddenly confessed to me, "Lisa, do you want to try being with me?" I looked at Zoe's post on social media, photos of her holding hands and kissing her boyfriend. My heart ached dully, but I still nodded and said, "Okay." Now that I think about it, that confession was far from romantic. But back then, my heart and mind were full of him, and even if the path ahead was an abyss, I was willing to fall into it with him. We only told Sam about us. He teased. After all this time, the right person has always been by your side. Alex didn't say anything. I knew he still needed time, but I was willing to wait. Throughout our 4 years at university, I stayed by his side cautiously, giving him all my care and effort. He also slowly started to care about me in return. On our 3rd anniversary, he posted a picture of us on social media. We were holding hands, so much like a genuinely loving couple. I thought I had finally entered his heart, but it turned out to be nothing more than an illusion. That night, Alex didn't come home. The next morning, when I arrived at the university, there was a crowd gathered at the gate. As soon as they saw me, someone approached me, saying mysteriously, "Lisa, someone is looking for you." I pushed through the crowd, only to see a stranger standing next to a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, an attractive person with an air of confidence. Her long hair cascaded over her shoulders, giving her an appearance that was beautiful yet ambiguous. She raised her eyes to glance at me, smiling gently, her demeanor both lazy and alluring, enough to make anyone's heart beat faster for no reason. "Are you Lisa?" she asked. "I came specifically to find you." I looked at her suspiciously and asked, "What do you want?" She walked over, her presence exuding a violet fragrance, unique and captivating. "My name is Elena, and I'm a fashion designer. I'd like you to model for me." She explained that she had seen my photo at a friend's place and thought that my looks and demeanor perfectly fit her new collection, which was why she flew all the way from England to find me. I felt flattered, but my long-standing lack of self-confidence made me instinctively want to back away. However, Elena seemed very sure. I trust my own judgment. Seeing my hesitation, she left her contact information and told me to think it over. We arranged to have an answer in 3 days, and then she swung her leg over the motorcycle, riding off with a grace like the wind. At that time, I had no idea that meeting her would bring such tremendous changes to my life. Chapter 04. The next time I saw Alex was the day after Zoe's welcome back party. I was carrying my laptop, intending to go to the library to work on my graduation thesis, and ran into him just as I stepped out of the dormitory building. The moment our eyes met, both of us were a bit awkward. What a coincidence. I greeted him stiffly. Alex lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and frowned. "I was actually waiting for you here." He hadn't smoked in a long time. The last time was after his confession to Zoe had failed. I lowered my gaze. "You could have just called me." He paused for a moment and then asked, "Are you free? Want to grab a bite to eat?" I nodded. "Okay." We didn't speak at all along the way. The atmosphere as awkward as if we were two strangers meeting for the first time. Alex finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry I missed your birthday." I hadn't expected him to bring it up, and for a moment I didn't know how to react. But before I could gather my thoughts, I heard myself say calmly, "It's okay." Alex smiled lightly. I felt frustrated with myself. No matter what he did, as long as he gave me any sign of goodwill, I would forgive him so easily. I hated myself for loving him so deeply, unable to do anything about it. Alex drove us to the restaurant where he had confessed to me. The waiter brought a delicate cake and a bouquet of roses. He carefully cut a piece of cake and placed it in front of me, apologetically saying, "It was wrong of me to leave suddenly that day. I'm making it up to you today." I had no resolve in front of him, knowing I held a place in his heart was enough to make me smile. "But this has nothing to do with Zoe." At the mention of her name, my smile froze on my face. He continued, Lisa, I hope you'll decline Elena's invitation. I didn't understand what connection these two things had, nor how he knew about Elena. I just looked up at him, stunned. Why? That opportunity was originally meant for Zoe. I heard him say, Alex told me that Elena saw the 3-year anniversary picture he had posted on Zoe's phone, which was how she found me. That fashion exhibition was specifically for newcomers in the fashion industry, and whoever won the gold award would get support to establish their own brand. Elena was the favorite to win, and being her partner would bring countless benefits. So, she asked you to come? I asked. Alex quickly explained. Of course not. She's just too kind. Even though she's sad, she still asked me to congratulate you on her behalf. I said nothing. He was still the same as before once he started talking about Zoe. He just wouldn't stop. Actually, she wanted to be a model, and I have 100 ways to help her. But she's stubborn and doesn't like relying on others. Though his words were blaming, his eyes were shining with admiration. I lowered my head and scooped a bite of cake into my mouth. But it only tasted sickeningly sweet. Won't she be upset if you do this? I asked. He smiled confidently. As long as she doesn't know. When you refuse Elena, just find a suitable reason and don't give yourself away. I looked at him, feeling a deep sorrow within. But doing this makes me unhappy. Alex paused, looking stunned. You usually hesitate to even speak on stage. So why would you be interested in something like a fashion show? Awkwardly, I said, I want to give it a try. I wanted to know if I really was as good as Elena had said. Alex lost his patience, and his tone turned cold. Lisa, I'm not discussing this with you. Look at yourself. What part of you is comparable to Zoe? Why do you have to overestimate yourself and compete with her? All the pent-up grievances burst out in an instant. Tears filled my eyes as I said, all you care about is Zoe. But I'm your girlfriend now. Alex wouldn't look at me and said softly, she's different. What's different about her? I asked. He frowned, his gaze flickering. Do I have to make it that obvious? My heart shattered into pieces, and I questioned him regardless of anything else. You like her. So why are you asking me to make sacrifices for her? Alex got angry, blurting out without thinking, because everything you have comes from my family. He was stunned by his own words after they left his mouth. I bowed my head low, biting my lips to keep myself from crying aloud. I understand. The air around us was eerily still. Perhaps realizing he had said something hurtful, he tried to explain softly. I didn't mean to look down on you. I kept my head down, saying nothing. He grew increasingly annoyed, stood up, and said, take your time with the food. I'm leaving. He left without looking back. I collapsed, and the tears broke free. Chapter 05. I refused Elena, giving her the excuse that with graduation approaching, I truly didn't have the time. She didn't push me and simply said, that was my oversight. Let's work together next time. And then she flew back to the UK. Alex didn't break up with me, but he also didn't contact me anymore. The photo of us that he had posted on his social media was gone, replaced by a landscape photo, a garden full of red roses, burning to the eye. And just like that, we ended without even saying goodbye, carelessly, just like the confession that had started it all. At the graduation ceremony, I went to find Sam to get something, and accidentally overheard their conversation. Sam asked Alex, since you chose Lisa, why can't you forget Zoe? He replied, A will always be a, but B can be anyone. Sam frowned and asked, what are you planning to do now? He pursed his lips and said earnestly, Zoe is single now. I want to pursue her. Sam sighed and said, Lisa has liked you for over 10 years. Don't regret it later. Alex answered with certainty, I won't. Turns out, all those years of chaos in my heart, he knew about it all along. Someone who doesn't love you won't be moved, no matter how much you give. I think it's really time for me to leave. After graduation, I declined the job Alex's family had arranged for me and moved to another city to live. For more than 10 years, my life revolved around Alex, and suddenly losing that direction, I spent a long time living like a shell of myself. The first New Year's Eve, I spent it alone in a rental apartment, Scrolling through social media, I saw a photo Oriana posted, a group picture of her, Sam, Zoe, and Alex. I stared at their faces for a long time. They all looked so happy. I opened my camera to take a selfie, pretending that I was happy too. As I smiled, tears uncontrollably fell. I wanted to find someone to talk to. I opened my university friend Roma's chat. The last message was from 2 hours ago. She had excitedly told me, "Lisa, Hudson and I are getting married." I replied, "Congratulations," quietly closing the chat. An unexpected message suddenly popped up. "Elena, Happy New Year." I was surprised she even remembered me, wiped my tears, and replied, "Happy New Year. How have you been lately?" I thought for a moment and replied, "Nothing too good. Nothing too bad. You?" And so we started casually chatting. She didn't win the gold award at that fashion show because she withdrew at the last minute. I was a bit upset and asked, "Why?" She said, "Because I wanted my favorite creation to be worn by the person it suits best." Feeling guilty, I asked, "Did you not find the right person afterward?" She replied, "No one but you." I called her stubborn, but in my heart, I felt a strange warmth, maybe because I had never been chosen so firmly by anyone before. At midnight, fireworks began outside. The brilliant light flickered, igniting thousands of other lights. I heard the cheers of children from upstairs, and the quiet night suddenly turned lively. Excited, I took a photo and sent it to Elena. "Look at the fireworks. So beautiful." She immediately called me, squinting her eyes and smiling enchantingly. "I see them. The same sky, the same scenery." Turns out, we were in the same city at that moment. Chapter 06. Elena told me that she came to this city at the invitation of a friend, to work as a consultant for her own clothing brand. She was also using the studio to prepare for the fashion show in May. Once again, she asked me to be her model. This time, I gladly agreed. Our relationship quickly grew close. When my college friend Roma got married, Elena took me to pick out a dress and get a new hairstyle. I looked at my transformed reflection in the mirror, amazed at her ability to create magic from the mundane. She tapped my head, saying, "Have some confidence. You were always beautiful." I always drew energy from Elena, making me feel as if I had finally recovered from that failed love. On Valentine's Day in February, Roma married her high school sweetheart Hudson. They were poor, so poor that Roma's wedding dress was just a simple white gown that cost 200 yuan. Hudson felt guilty and sad about it, so I asked Elena for help. She suggested embellishing the dress with embroidery. Hudson personally designed the pattern and stitched it bit by bit. He even learned how to make a veil. I watched this man, who was clumsy but determined, learn needlework for the sake of his beloved, and I thought, this must be what real love looks like. At the wedding, Roma wore that dress, and she was the most beautiful bride in the world. When Hudson lifted her veil and saw her face, he smiled as tears fell. I couldn't help but think of Alex. I had once imagined countless times walking into a wedding ceremony with him. I opened his social media, only to see that he had just posted a new photo. Zoe was holding a bouquet of red roses, and Alex was holding her waist, looking at her with tender eyes. The caption read, "No one but you is meant to grow old with me." In the small chapel, the bride and groom spoke vows of never parting, and the air was filled with the sweetness of love. The crowd chanted, "Kiss, kiss." Suddenly, I laughed loudly, joining in the cheering and celebration. Elena stood silently beside me. After the reception ended, she suddenly asked, "Want to go for a ride?" I nodded silently. She put a helmet on me. Warning, the wind will be loud later, so I might not hear you. If you need anything, just tap my shoulder. Then she revved the engine, taking me across the city, slicing through the wind, from one end of the city to the other. I sat on the back of Elena's motorcycle, crying my heart out. That desperate and humble love finally ended for good that day. That night, Elena stayed with me as I drank a lot of alcohol. For the first time, I told her about my story with Alex. She listened quietly. I asked her, with swollen eyes, "Why doesn't he like me? Am I really that bad?" While handing me a tissue, she explained, "It's not that you're not good enough. You just haven't met the right person yet." The one who truly appreciates you will find your flaws insignificant and will magnify your strengths. Even if you are buried in the ground, they will be able to see at first glance that you are a sparkling gem. I bowed my head, discouraged. Will I really meet someone like that? She smiled softly. First, love yourself well. Just be ready. She then raised the beer can in her hand to clink against mine. Teasing. But haven't you already met that person? She pointed to herself. Someone who appreciates you. I looked into her eyes. There was a kind of magic hidden in those dark pupils, captivating me easily. Many years later, I would still think of this night, over and over. It gave me infinite courage to face this imperfect world. It turns out that someone who stays with you till death doesn't always have to be romantic love. Chapter 07. Elena's world was strange and colorful. I found myself gradually falling for it, and a crazy idea quietly emerged in my mind. To prepare for the upcoming fashion show, I started dieting, exercising, and practicing my runway walk, giving it my all. Sometimes, I would imagine myself walking down the runway, drawing amazed glances from all around. Then the host would announce the designer's name, and applause would surge like a wave. It was an exhilarating experience that I had never felt before, one that was so beautiful it felt as though I was floating in the air. But I never expected to run into Zoe that day at the show. We were assigned to the same dressing room. She was the opening model, wearing a red silk gown, stunning like a blooming red rose. The moment she stepped on stage, the applause was thunderous, breathtaking. When she returned backstage, an assistant handed her a bouquet of roses, whispering, "From Mr. Alex." Zoe picked a rose and toyed with it, turning her head to look at me as I was doing my makeup. "I heard you've been with Alex for 3 years, but he's never given you roses, always sweetbriar flowers." I remained silent. She continued, "Sweetbriar and roses look alike, but they are worlds apart. Only someone with a poor eye would mistake them." I looked at myself in the mirror and unconsciously lowered my head. "Chin up." Elena's voice sounded in my ear. She placed a rose wreath on my head, raising her brows as she smiled. "It suits you well." I looked at her gentle yet determined gaze, took a deep breath, and no longer felt lost. Maybe I didn't believe in myself enough, but I believed in Elena. That day, I was the last model to walk the runway. While waiting by the stage, Elena held my hand the entire time. The closer we got to our turn, the more tightly she gripped my hand. "So, she also gets nervous. It's okay. Leave it to me." The words came out of my mouth, even surprising myself. My heart was pounding with anxiety, yet I still had the audacity to say such things. Elena turned to look at me, her grip relaxing. Just move forward boldly." She smiled at me. I stepped onto the runway in a dress adorned with countless three-dimensional roses. All eyes instantly focused on me. "Don't fall," I reminded myself. Even though it was a very short path, it felt longer than any journey I had walked in my life. In my heart, I called out Elena's name, and strength seemed to grow within me, each step more steady than the last. I reached the front and posed. The applause around me surged like a wave, the loudest and longest of the night. Cameras clicked and flashed incessantly in front of me. The lights and music intertwined, forming a dreamlike world of fashion. And here I was, right in the middle of it. Before stepping onto the stage, all I thought about was not letting Elena down. But now, it was more than that. A seed that had been buried deep in my heart was breaking through the earth and blooming. Chapter 08. After the fashion show ended, Elena was held back by someone. I heard it was a big name in the fashion industry, and I was genuinely happy for her. I walked out of the venue alone, feeling as if I were floating. "Lisa," a voice called my name. I turned my head and saw Alex standing not far away. Behind him was his black Mercedes, probably here to pick up Zoe. My heart trembled, and I felt my breath tighten a little. He took a few steps toward me, greeting me. "Long time no see." I put a bit of distance between us, adjusted my breathing, and replied politely, "Long time no see." Alex forced a somewhat awkward smile. "How have you been?" My mood gradually calmed, and I replied plainly, "Very well." There was an awkward silence. I was about to find an excuse to leave. Suddenly, he spoke again. "You look beautiful today." I froze for a moment, meeting his gaze. I mean, the dress suits you well, he added, speaking sincerely and earnestly. I smiled. Thank you for the compliment. Alex's gaze grew more intense, as if he wanted to say something more. Suddenly, a slap landed on my face. With full force, I staggered from the impact, turning to see Zoe glaring at me with a furious expression. Flirting with someone else's boyfriend in public. Don't you have any shame? Alex hurried forward, grabbing her hand. You misunderstood. We just ran into each other and chatted for a bit. Zoe shot me a sideways glance. I think she's been plotting all along. Alex frowned and explained in a low voice. I was the one who greeted Lisa first. It really has nothing to do with her. Zoe was relentless, mocking. Lisa, I must say, you've really changed in just 1 year. Even Alex is standing up for you now. Did you learn your seduction skills from Elena? Hearing her slander Elena like that, I was instantly furious. Before I could move to tear her apart, a sharp slap echoed through the air. Zoe's head turned to the side, and she covered her face, staring in disbelief at the woman in front of her. Elena had appeared from nowhere. She pointed at me, her face cold, and said, "Apologize to her." Alex pulled his startled girlfriend into his arms. Today's events are my fault. I apologize to both of you. Zoe looked up at him, fuming. Didn't you see me being bullied? Alex soothed her gently. Stop making a scene. You're not even defending me? Zoe asked, her face filled with shock. Alex pursed his lips and said softly, You really went too far just now. Zoe shoved him away, her beautiful eyes brimming with tears. So much for saying you'd never let me be wronged. It was all lies. She glared at him, then turned and ran off without looking back. Alex gave us an apologetic glance and hurried after her. I watched their entangled figures, recalling the past. When I was with Alex, we never argued. My friends used to say that women like me lacked charm, and that I should express my emotions appropriately. Once, on my birthday, we made plans to watch a movie together. He showed up late, explaining that he lost track of time while playing basketball with his friends. I complained. The movie's almost over, he said dismissively. It's just a movie, isn't it? We can buy tickets again. I felt disappointed. You didn't even care about our plans. He frowned, impatient. I'm here, aren't I? What more do you want? After arguing a few times, I ran off feeling wronged, turning back every few steps. He didn't come after me. That night, I sat alone on a bench at the bus stop, in the wind all night. No call, no message. In the end, I swallowed my pride and went to him to make peace. See, the line between love and indifference is so clear. I withdrew my gaze and linked my arm through Elena's. Let's go too. Elena looked worried. Are you okay? I nodded. If you're in a bad mood, don't pretend in front of me. Really, I'm fine. I smiled. I'm no longer that foolish girl who tied all her emotions to Alex. On the way back to the hotel, Elena told me she had secured funding. I was genuinely happy for her, and my steps felt lighter as well. It was the same road as yesterday. One of the streetlights along the way was broken, but somehow, it didn't feel as dark. Chapter 09. My flower fairy look made it to the top of various media lists. A modeling agency approached me, wanting to sign a contract, but I refused. The Cinderella that amazes everyone is certainly dazzling, but I have a deeper longing for the fairy godmother, because she has the magic that makes others shine. Elena is going to France to further her career. I decided to follow in her footsteps and study fashion design there. When I resigned from my company, I nervously asked her, Do you think my idea is unrealistic? Instead of answering, she asked, Is it just a whim? I shook my head and said very seriously, I've thought it through. In the past, my life revolved around Alex. Even my choice of accounting major in college was just because he mentioned wanting a reliable financial person in the future. This was the first time I made a decision following my own heart. Elena smiled brightly. Then I'll be waiting for you in France, to fulfill this promise as soon as possible. I studied like crazy. More than half a year later, I was finally admitted to ESMOD International Fashion Design School in France. Before leaving, I returned to my old city, I heard Alex's mother was in the hospital. She had always been kind to me, and it felt right to go see her. I asked Sam to take me there when no one else was around. He said helplessly, "Is it really necessary to avoid Alex like this?" I explained, "I just want to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings and trouble." He looked at me with a complicated expression. "You don't need to worry about Zoe. They broke up." I was taken aback. "What happened?" Sam explained. "The moon is beautiful because of the distance. When you get too close, you'll see the scars and unevenness." He told me that after they got together, they often fought. Alex loved Zoe, so he was always the one to back down first. But Alex had grown up surrounded by admiration and was equally proud, unable to accommodate endlessly without limits. Over time, their conflicts kept accumulating. Not long ago, Zoe threw a tantrum again and shattered the jade bracelet Alex had given her. It was a family heirloom, meant for the future daughter-in-law. Alex's mother cherished it deeply, and the incident angered her so much that she ended up in the hospital with her already frail health. She never recovered. Alex was always filial, and he got really angry at Zoe. That's when they broke up. They were never really right for each other. Sam sighed, not wanting to discuss it further. I changed the subject. "Did they manage to fix the bracelet?" Sam said worriedly. "Alex is looking everywhere right now. Unfortunately, he's asked many jade stores, but they all said it can't be fixed." I thought for a moment and said, "Maybe I can help." He squinted at me, giving me a teasing look. "You still care about Alex the most." I shook my head in denial. "I just want to make his mother feel better." Sam didn't say anything more. I reached out to a friend I knew from the study abroad agency. Her grandfather is an old craftsman who has been repairing jade for decades. I was lucky enough to meet him once, and I was amazed by his exquisite skills. I handed the repaired jade bracelet to Sam, asking him to pass it on to Alex. He frowned. "Why make it so complicated? You could just meet with him directly." I lowered my lashes and said softly, "There's no need." Sam looked at me and suddenly said, "I still think you and Alex are the most suitable for each other." He paused, then continued, "Have you thought about reconciling?" "Actually," I shook my head, interrupting him, "he doesn't love me, Anne." I smiled, feeling at peace. I don't love him anymore either. Upon hearing this, Sam's expression shifted slightly, his eyes looking past me. I turned around and saw Alex standing right behind us. He looked at me, his expression complicated. He opened his mouth but said nothing. I said goodbye to Sam and walked straight toward Alex, brushing past him. This time, I was going to pursue my own life. Chapter 10. After arriving in France, Elena and I rented a small townhouse with a garden. It was located between my school and her studio. Elena was clueless about household matters. The house was empty without furniture, and she was fine with just buying a mattress to sleep on the floor. I went to IKEA and brought back a lot of things. She always complained about how troublesome I was while silently helping me assemble everything. I also cleaned up the neglected garden and put up a swing set. When she had free time, Elena would sit on it, playing and singing Secret Garden on her guitar. She seemed to really like that song. She even named her personal brand after it. Looking at her, I always felt that life was as beautiful as a dream. In the second year of Elena's brand, she had her first big show. It was crucial to establish her reputation. Since starting school, I had been helping out in her studio, and this time, I was responsible for coordinating with the set designer. I heard the designer was specially invited by the brand's investor, a very mysterious figure. But I never imagined that person would be Alex. He was still just as handsome and charming as before, capable of captivating anyone at a glance. But today, my heart no longer skipped a beat for him. I stepped forward with confidence and greeted him. He nodded slightly, appearing more reserved than me. I didn't continue making small talk and quickly immersed myself in work. The communication process went smoothly, and we soon finalized the plan. Alex complimented. "I didn't expect you to have such a deep understanding of architecture now." I responded calmly. "Architecture and fashion have a lot in common." He stared at me for a long time, his dark eyes reflecting my face. "You really have changed a lot." I smiled. "Well, people have to grow." He invited me to dinner, I declined. As I left the studio, it started to rain. I didn't have an umbrella, and I got stuck at the entrance. Alex caught up to me and said, "Let me give you a ride back." We shared an umbrella, walking slowly toward the parking lot. He tilted the umbrella toward me, shielding me from the wind and rain. By the time we reached the car, his shoulders were already soaked. Old memories resurfaced in my mind. Once, when we were on a date, it suddenly started to rain. I had a playful idea and bought only one umbrella when we passed a convenience store. I wanted to stroll through the rain with him, stepping on puddles, but he held the umbrella and pulled me along quickly. By the time we got back to campus, half of me was soaked, shivering from the cold. He frowned and complained, "I told you we should have bought two." Chapter 11. I worked with Alex for 3 months. Elena's fashion show was a huge success. The garden stage designed by Alex added much charm to her early spring collection. After it ended, he said he wanted to wander around Paris and asked me to be his guide. To express my gratitude, I didn't refuse. Paris is a romantic city, with street musicians playing along the sidewalks and the aroma of coffee wafting from open cafe doors. At night, along the Seine River, the lighthouse lit up, and someone was proposing with candles. Alex suddenly stopped, staring for a long time, a faint loneliness in his eyes. I thought he probably remembered Zoe again. "I've been looking for you for a long time," he suddenly said. I froze, looking at him in confusion. He turned to me and explained, "You helped me fix the jade bracelet, and I never thanked you." Later, when I went to find you, you were already gone. I waved my hand. "It was just a small favor. No need to mention it. It's not just that." He paused, his gaze deepening. "You've always done so much for me." I frowned, not responding. Alex's expression suddenly turned unusually serious. "Actually, I came here for you." After a pause, he spoke again. "Lisa, I regret it. Can we start over?" He looked at me with deep affection, like an ocean filled with love. If it were before, I probably would have drowned in it. But now, my heart didn't stir at all. I met his gaze and said calmly, "Alex, I don't want to be your second choice anymore." "It's not like that." He took a step forward, urgently explaining, "I'm not the same as I was before." I stepped back, smiling, "But I've changed too. I'm no longer willing to love you." Alex's shoulders slumped, and a hint of sadness surfaced in his eyes. He smiled bitterly. "I figured you wouldn't agree, but I still wanted you to know my feelings." He quickly gathered himself, raising his eyebrows slightly. "This time, I'm not giving up." I never expected Alex would seriously start pursuing me. He frequently flew to France, creating all sorts of surprises for me, no matter how I refused. He persisted. On my graduation day, he showed up as usual, with gifts and a large bouquet of sweetbriar flowers. When I was 12, on the day I was taken out of the orphanage, he was just like today, holding a stuffed animal for me in one arm and some sweetbriar flowers he'd picked from the roadside in the other. Back then, I ran joyfully toward the boy standing in the sunlight. But now, the many years that followed, each moment he turned away and ignored me, piled up bit by bit, like an insurmountable chasm between us. "I don't like sweetbriar flowers anymore." I stood in place, unable to take another step forward. His gaze darkened. "Then what do you like? I'll bring something different next time." "Alex, stop wasting your time on me. Not everything can be restarted." After saying that, I turned around and left without looking back. Elena was waiting for me not far away, and I quickly walked over to her. "Really not planning to give him a chance?" she asked. I nodded. She was silent for a moment before speaking again. "Is it that you don't want to fall in love, or that you don't want to be with him?" I paused, lowering my head. Elena looked at me gently. "If it's the latter, I respect your decision, but if it's the former, then I want to tell you that there are still many beautiful loves in this world worth experiencing. Don't shut happiness out because of one hurt." In the years since I separated from Alex, I did meet some good suitors, but I was timid and afraid, unwilling to open my heart again. Elena, somehow, always saw right through me. Sometimes I would think that if she were a man, we we would definitely be able to love each other for a lifetime. I linked my arm through hers, playfully saying, "Why do I need to fall in love? Having a sister is enough." She gave me an exasperated look. "That won't do. If you don't get married, I will." I widened my eyes, intrigued. What kind of man could win over our gorgeous Elena? She smiled but didn't answer. Chapter 12. After graduation, I joined Elena's company and became a designer at Secret Garden. At that time, her brand was undergoing a new round of expansion. For the most crucial brand show, she invited me to collaborate with her. I was flattered, but as a rookie, I lacked confidence. She was just as certain as ever, saying, "I trust my own judgment." This collection was rose-themed. We worked day and night, letting roses bloom on every dress. Elena and I had a remarkably consistent vision. We hoped that every girl could live like a proudly independent rose, full of soft, graceful charm but also possessing the courage to face the thorns. The show was a tremendous success. The moment we stood on stage together, receiving flowers and applause, Elena said something to me, "Roses all the way." From then on, there would be flowers all along the way. What a beautiful phrase. Unfortunately, life is always cruel, catching people off guard. The day after the big show, Elena suddenly disappeared. She returned a month later, seemingly a different person, locking herself in her studio all day, drinking herself into oblivion. She looked so tormented, yet she refused to confide in anyone. Not long after, she attempted suicide. I found her in her studio, surrounded by empty bottles. She was curled up in a corner, motionless, as if she had stopped breathing. I rushed her to the hospital overnight. The doctor said she had swallowed an entire bottle of sleeping pills. Fortunately, she was treated in time and survived. After waking up, she remained silent. How could someone so beautiful and strong suddenly shatter without warning? I stayed by her side day after day, feeling helpless, until one day, a girl in the next bed happened to play the song Secret Garden. Elena suddenly broke down in tears. It was then that I learned Elena once had a lover, the man who composed the song Secret Garden. On the night our show succeeded, his plane crashed into the wilderness. The red-eye flight's destination was Paris, France. Was he coming to see Elena? That question would never be answered. Chapter 13. Elena dissolved the company and decided to travel alone. "Are you disappointed in me?" she asked. I bit my lip hard and shook my head. Elena had always been like a pillar of strength to me. I admired her, depended on her. Yet, I knew so little about her. I realized that I had no right to be disappointed. I was just very reluctant to let her go. "You will come back, right?" I asked softly. She didn't answer me, just smiled and said, "I have a gift for you." She led me to her room, where there was a beautiful wedding dress. It was unmistakably Elena's design. "Try it on and see if it fits." She slipped the wedding dress on me and, looking at my reflection in the mirror, softly said, "I hope you find happiness soon." I could no longer hold back and let the tears fall. We gave up the small townhouse we had rented together. As I watched the traces of our lives being cleaned away bit by bit, my heart also felt emptier and emptier. When Elena left, she took only a small amount of luggage and her guitar. I asked her, "Where are you going next?" She answered nonchalantly, "I don't know." Elena said that she had been without parents since she was young, a person without a home, suited to wandering. I watched her turn away, walking with such determination, and suddenly felt very afraid. It was as if I didn't do something, she would disappear from the world again. "Will you come back when I wear the wedding dress?" I shouted after her. She paused, but never looked back. I caught up with her, standing in front of her. "You will come back to bless me, won't you?" Elena's gaze was dull. I held her shoulders tightly, repeating my question again and again. In the end, my tone was almost pleading. She finally nodded and promised, "All right." I am a very selfish person. Knowing it might bring her pain, I still used the sly promise to keep her close. Chapter 14. After Elena left, I started having trouble sleeping. I would wake up in the middle of the night, staring at unfamiliar walls, and loneliness would wrap around me like a cocoon. This suffocating feeling was no less painful than a breakup. One day, I found myself unconsciously walking back to the old townhouse, seeing an agent showing it to potential clients. Suddenly, my heart ached. I turned and hurried away, but a familiar voice called out to me, "Lisa." Alex quickly caught up to me, pulling me into his arms, his voice hoarse. "Where have you been these days? I've been so worried about you." The cold December wind cut through to the bone, making me want to hold on to a little warmth. I lifted my hand and slowly put it down, ultimately not pushing him away. Alex held me tighter and said softly, "Lisa, come back home with me. I'm not comfortable with you being here alone." I was exhausted, both physically and mentally, my mind hazy, almost ready to nod and agree. The sharp ringtone of his phone suddenly interrupted. Alex glanced at the screen, frowning slightly before rejecting the call. Just as he was about to speak, the phone started ringing frantically again. "Answer it. It might be something important," I said with a faint smile. He gave me an apologetic look, walking a long distance away before answering the call. The agent came out of the house with the client. They hadn't made a deal. "Can I take a look inside?" I asked in French. The agent eagerly led me in. The furnishings inside were still the same. Elena and I had spent over 3 beautiful years here. Sometimes, I would blame her. She was so close, yet she never shared her pain with me. But just now, I think I suddenly understood. It wasn't that she didn't want to. Perhaps she just couldn't. I always thought that having dreams and a career meant I was a mature adult. But in reality, my spiritual world had never truly blossomed into a proudly independent rose. I had been living brightly by borrowing Elena's light. Now that she was gone, I had withered. If only I had understood sooner. I walked outside, looking at the swing in the garden, murmuring to myself. Alex returned after his call, seeing me standing there in a daze, and gently knocked on my head. "If you like it, I can put an identical one at home." I shook my head. No need. No one would sit on it and sing while playing the guitar anymore. "I'm not planning to go back home with you," I added. He walked over and took my hand, asking, "Why?" I pulled away and asked back, "Was that Zoe on the phone just now?" His body tensed instantly, his voice nervous. "She's in some trouble and asked me for help. If it bothers you, I'll delete her contact right away." I raised my eyes slightly and said indifferently, "I don't mind." He froze. "Alex, I really don't love you anymore," I said. His eyes reddened. "But just now, you clearly." "That was only because I was too weak and wanted someone to accompany me," I said coldly. "Even if it wasn't you, I wouldn't have pushed them away." Alex trembled, stubbornly saying, "I don't believe you." "It's not that you don't believe. You just don't want to accept it." I looked into Alex's eyes, suddenly smiling. "We're both adults now." Instead of clinging painfully, "Let's part with dignity." He looked at me for a long time in silence. I was the first to turn and leave. Chapter 15. I found a job as a designer in Paris and rented our old townhouse again. I began to get used to solitude, and I learned to open my heart, ready to accept new people stepping into my life. In the first year after Elena left, my disordered life slowly returned to normal. The next time I heard about Alex was when news of his marriage to Zoe went viral. The talented architect created a rose garden just to make his beloved smile. In spring, pale pink flowers covered the entire courtyard. They held a grand wedding there. For a time, their story became a romantic tale, but some observant netizens noticed. Miss Zoe always loved roses, so why would she spend her life surrounded by sweetbriar instead? That question remained unanswered, soon drowned out by other gossip. I had no time to guess Alex's thoughts either. I only hoped we would both be well. Chapter 16. The second year after Elena left, I met Roma. She had divorced Hudson. The man who once loved her so much fell in love with someone else after achieving success. Roma acted strong, but I was worried she'd disappear from my sight like Elena once did. I stayed by her side, not daring to let my guard down for a moment. One day she asked me, "Hudson said he would make me happy. Why didn't he keep his word?" I thought for a moment and honestly replied, "In this world, Only you will never betray yourself. Instead of pinning happiness on someone else, why not fight for it yourself? She leaned on my shoulder and praised me for being mature. Elena, how I wish you could hear that. I'm no longer the insecure, timid crybaby I used to be. I've become someone others can lean on. Roma bought a winery and decided to settle in Paris. I also quit my job and started preparing to open my own bridal design studio. On the opening day, I received a large bouquet of roses. The card only had best wishes, no signature. I chased after the person, and from a distance, I saw Alex's silhouette. He had lost a lot of weight, walking alone in the wind, looking somewhat desolate. At that time, I had already heard about what happened between him and Zoe from Roma. After returning home, Zoe arranged to meet with Alex, drugged him when he was drunk, and later used her pregnancy to force him to marry her. But their married life was chaotic, full of absurdities, and even became a joke among acquaintances. I watched as Alex's silhouette disappeared at the end of the road, then turned and gave the roses to a beggar. I didn't call out to him, and he didn't look back. Chapter 17. The third year after Elena left, my bridal brand gradually got on track. On my 30th birthday, I would have my first solo fashion show. Roma always sighed, saying I was successful in my career but unlucky in love. Over the years, I've had new relationships, but each ended in failure. Perfect love is a luxury, not something everyone can have. I decided to wear the wedding dress Elena gave me on the day of my show, because I felt that was the happiest moment of my life. Fulfilling the promise in this way is indeed a bit sneaky. But Elena, I really miss you. Will you show up that day? Until today, I still haven't met a soulmate, but I'm not afraid. What I'm truly afraid of is never being able to see you again. You said you were a person without a home. I bought the old townhouse we used to live in, and in the garden, there are not only roses but also the violets you loved. The table, chairs, swing, everything is still in its original place. Could this be your home? Elena, when will you come back home? I'm still waiting for you.